In today's video, SKIRK, mysterious abyssal entity, master of all weapons arts and also child's trainer. SKIRK is a 5-star cryo character, source, polearm and claymore wielder, but don't worry, you'll need just one sword for her, main DPS in 3 teams. In this video you'll find tips, science explanations, artifact sets, weapons and more, so keep watching if you want to have the best SKIRK in Genshin. Join my Discord server if you want to make friends and play Genshin or other games, you're more than welcome to join, and without further ado, this is SKIRK's character investment, and let's run right into her active talents. With the normal attack, SKIRK performs up to 5 consecutive attacks with a polearm. Normal attack is one of her combat styles when she is in the battlefield, but she doesn't deal damage from this talent, so forget the first active talent for her and let's go have a look at the skill, which is pretty simple actually, since by using it, SKIRK will enter her special state that will have different purposes based on how you activate it. If you tap it, she will break her polearm into 2 swords and will gain Serpent Subtlety points and switch to the 7-phase flash mode. If you hold it instead, SKIRK gains Serpent Subtlety points and will continuously move at high speed. Her interruption resistance is increased in this state and it will end when she'll consume all her Serpent Subtlety points or if you use her skill again. Last active talent, the Burst, which as forma weakest doesn't rely on elemental energy but instead on Serpent Subtlety points. When SKIRK has enough Serpent Subtlety points, she can expend all her Serpent Subtlety points to unleash her elemental burst dealing AoE cryo damage. At the same time, the damage dealt by an instance of this elemental burst can be increased by every remaining point of Serpent Subtlety when it's unleashed. When SKIRK is in the 7-phase flash mode, so the mode of her skill, Evoke Ruin, her standard burst, will be replaced by Evoke Extinction, a special elemental burst that can be used without consuming Serpent Subtlety points, and after using it, SKIRK will gain the All Shall Wither effect, which will last until 7-phase flash ends. While All Shall Wither is active every 0.1 seconds after SKIRK's normal attack hits an opponent, that normal attack will deal increased damage. If she absorbed any Void Rifts while using Evoke Extinction, this normal attack's damage will be further increased based on the number of rifts absorbed. This effect will be concealed when it has triggered 10 times. So, the level priority is skill, burst and last normal attack. Let's have a look at the passive talent for her. With the first one, when nearby party members trigger Frozen, Superconduct, Cryo's Real or Cryocrystallized reaction against opponents, a Void Rift will be created near the opponent. This effect can be triggered once every 2.5 seconds and 3 Void Rifts created by SKIRK herself can exist on the field at once. SKIRK can use the following methods to absorb nearby Void Rifts when she hits an opponent with a charge attack in her 7-phase flash mode, so pretty similar to Arlecchino mechanic, when she uses the special elemental burst Evoke Extinction while in the 7-phase flash mode, and when she holds her elemental skill to engage in rapid movement. Each rift absorbed will of course grant her a certain amount of Serpent Subtlety points, so to make her more clear, the more points you have, the longer is your normal attack combo, and if you're using her burst combat style instead, the more points you have, the more powerful your burst will be. With the second passive talent, when nearby Hydro party members Hydro attacks its opponents, or when nearby Cryo party members apart from SKIRK its opponents with Cryo attacks, SKIRK will gain the Death Crossing effect for 20 seconds. You can see that when hitting an opponent, a sort of crystal spawns on our current active character's head, and you can reach up to a maximum of 3 stacks of this effect. Each character can grant SKIRK at most 1 Death Crossing stack, so the number of Cryo and Hydro characters you have in the team is directly connected to this effect and won't be fully activated if you have characters beyond Cryo and Hydro in the team, which limits quite strongly her team comps and types of teams, even though her first passive talent makes SKIRK be able to have buffs thanks to Electro, NMO and Geo characters. Each Death Crossing stack increases the normal attack damage dealt by SKIRK in 7-phase flash mode and the damage dealt when using her standard burst. This talent is really useful for her performances. And with the last one, when all party members are either Hydro or Cryo, and if there is at least 1 Hydro and 1 Cryo character, party members' elemental skill level is increased by 1, crazy effect for Furion and Escoffier damage, for Shenhe support potential, for Citality shield and Yelen's skill damage, and a lot of other cards of course. So the rotation for SKIRK changes as you use her skill. If you tap her skill, she will enter her state that will replace the burst with her special one, and by using it you can collect Void Rifts but won't deal any instance of damage. After this you can use the normal attack and charge attack or special burst to recharge the bar and collect Void Rifts again. This is of course the rotation that leads SKIRK to stay more in the battlefield. If you want to play her in a sort of quick swap team where you have another DPS like Ayaka, Wriothesley, Novelette or Mulolani, you have to hold the skill instead in order to gain Serpent Subtlety points without entering the state that will replace her burst, so you can use it to deal damage. Now that we had a look at the entire kit, is SKIRK Queen or Queen? Of course, she can deal great damage and has a quite big damage potential. Her rotation is kinda tricky, but once you get used to it, it's really fun in my opinion, since it's pretty versatile and allows you to have the freedom of changing it eventually. So with Skirk, you have both damage and great animation, which is a win for us. Also, she has a lot of artifacts and weapons options that we are going to see in a second. Her team comp's versatility is pretty limited, but I don't think it's a waste considering that she is really strong in her niche and that we have lots of DPS in Genshin nowadays. Being versatile as a DPS in 2025 is not as important as it was from 2020 to 2023, I would say. Let me know what you think, and let's go have a look at the build options for Skirk. Oh, and also almost forgot, Skirk is a queen, of course. So for artifacts options, for 2-piece she can use 2-piece attack, Gladiator, Simenawa, and all others, 2-piece normal attack damage, Martial Hunter, 2-piece burst damage, Noblesse Oblige, and 2-piece cryo damage, Blizzard Strayer, and Deep Gallery's Echoing Song. For 4-piece she can use Deep Gallery's Echoing Song, which will grant Skirk a buff in normal attack damage and her burst damage. The problem with this set is that the two buffs can coexist, but after you use one talent between the normal attack or burst, the other one won't be buffed for 6 seconds, which leads Skirk to not have a buff for half her combo of normal attack when in the battlefield. Martial Hunter, which will grant her a total of 36% of crit rate if her HP decreases or increases. This is a set she can't activate by herself since she needs Furina to activate it properly. In Skirk's case, it's not that big of a problem since Furina is present in the majority of team comps for her, but it's still a set that forces you to have a specific character in the team. Blizzard Strayer, which grants a total of 40% of crit rate if the opponent is frozen, which is really fitting with Skirk's team comps. The problem is that some bosses can be frozen, which makes this set really unstable since it can be really relevant against some opponents and almost useless against others, but it's still a great set and a great option to consider for Skirk. Gladiator's Finale, which increases Skirk normal attack damage simply because she's a sword wielder, which is really useful for her combat style. Of course it's not if you want to use her in a quick swap burst team. The rank of her best 4-piece set is Blizzard, Marechaussee, and Last Gallery if we rely on the impact artifact sets have on the character performances, but given what I just said for each of them, I would place Blizzard in 3rd place since currently freeze is not a relevant reaction, or better, not every opponent can be frozen. Then Marechaussee in 2nd place and Gallery in 1st place since it's the only one you don't need to change based on your team comps and opponents. Main stats are attack on the sand, cryo damage or attack on the goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the circlet. Substats are crit rate, crit damage, and attack. Before we uncover weapons options, the majority of the viewers are not subscribed, so subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content and make sure to activate the notifications to not miss out any feature guides of your favorite characters. Let's have a look at weapons options now. First option is Azure Light, our signature weapon of course, which gives a lot of base attack and a good percent of crit rate. The effect will increase her attack by a total of 48% and crit damage by 40%. Of course it's really strong for her and she can obtain all buffs with no effort. Harangebaku, which gives a lot of base attack and crit rate. The effect will grant a buff in elemental damage and also buff in normal attack damage. This weapon is really good for her not only for the stats and buffs, but also for the method the buffs activate, which is really synergic with her rotation. Mistsplitter Reforged, which grants a lot of attack and crit damage. The effect grants a buff in elemental damage for a maximum of 40%, which she can activate with no effort since she can deal elemental damage via her normal attack. She has 0 energy and the burst only has to be cast to activate the last stack of the effect, so it can be activated even if you want to use her normal attack combos or her normal attack rotation. Primordial J Cutter, which grants a lot of crit rate and base attack. The effect increases max HP and will grant a buff in attack based on Skirk's max HP, so pretty good for her. In this case, try to not overcap the crit rate percent required. For first as options, she can have Finale of the Deep, which grants a lot of attack with the substat and the first part of the effect. It will also grant to Skirk Bond of Life that will grant her flat attack once it is depleted. This weapon is craftable, so it's a really good option for Skirk. Calamity of Eshu, which also grants a lot of attack. The effect is really strong since it will grant Skirk normal attack damage bonus and normal attack crit rate bonus if she is protected by a shield. This weapon was obtainable through an event in 5.2, I believe. The Black Sword, which grants a good amount of base attack and a great percent of crit rate. The effect grants normal attack damage bonus and will heal Skirk if her normal attack or charge attack score a crit hit. Pretty good since it makes Skirk more independent and also tankier while fighting. Wolfang, which also grants a good amount of base attack and a great percent of crit rate. The effect buffs skill and burst damage and crit rate. It is more useful for the burst of course, so give her this weapon only if you want to play her in quick swap teams. So in case you still have doubts or questions, for Skirk's ideal build you should aim to have 2000 to 2500 of attack. She doesn't need an elemental mastery energy recharge since she plays in 3 teams and relies on surface subtlety points for the burst. You should stop building crit rate at 45% if you have Blizzard on her, at 49 if you have Marchusset, and 65% is enough if you have Gallery on her, since you would have the Cryo Resonance active. For crit damage, try to stay around 240%. It can be higher of course, but don't sacrifice crit rate to raise the percentage of crit damage. 61% of cryo damage is already enough. Of course, this stat changes based on the weapon and artifacts that you gave her. So now let's have a look at the constellation before team comps, so we can understand if there are any constellations needed, or we can play SKIRK as these Euros 11 great performances. The first one enhances the effect of the first passive talent, and every Void Rift Absorbed will summon a crystal blade to attack nearby opponent, dealing cryo damage based on SKIRK's attack. This damage is considered charge attack damage, so you can buff it with the 2-piece effect of Marchusset, or simply by choosing charge attack damage bonus when possible. So what should we choose between her first constellation and signature weapon? I think her signature weapon is a better choice if you want to increase SKIRK damage, since this weapon has a really vertical impact on her. You have attack, crit rate, and crit damage, which makes first of all the build easier, and second of all, every skill of her will deal more damage. With the first constellation, your general DPS grows, but you don't collect a Void Rift just after it spawns. You rather collect all Void Rifts at once, so these incredible instances of damage are indeed incredible, but can happen every 5.7 seconds. So her signature weapon is better since it increases her general kit performances and gives you a stronger base from which you can start get constellation for her. With the second one, after unleashing her skill, SKIRK will gain additional Serpent Subtlety points. When using her standard burst, the damage of this elemental burst instance will be increased by taking more Serpent Subtlety points into account. Additionally, after SKIRK unleashes the special burst while in her 7-phase flash mode, her attack is increased. This effect will be concealed when she leaves the 7-phase flash mode. So with this constellation, she has a more powerful burst and will have a stronger normal attacks combo thanks to the buff in attack granted after unleashing her special burst. The third increases the level of the burst by 3. The fourth enhances the effects of the second passive talent, which will also increase SKIRK's attack for each death crossing stack gained. Pretty strong also because it's not the usual fourth constellation dedicated to character's energy regeneration. The fifth increases the level of the skill by 3. And with the last one, each Void Rift SKIRK absorbed via the effect of the first passive talent grants her 1 Avoc Silver stack. She can consume such stacks to initiate coordinated attacks and decrease the damage she takes while in 7-phase flash mode. This effect stacks up to 3 times. It lasts for 15 seconds and each stack's duration is counted independently. Let's have a deeper look at this mechanic. When SKIRK uses the elemental burst, she will consume all Avoc Silver stacks to initiate a coordinated attack in which each Avoc Silver stack will deal cryo damage based on SKIRK's attack. When she uses normal attacks while in 7-phase flash mode, 1 Avoc Silver stack will be consumed when her 3rd or 5th sequences attack either an opponent to launch 3 coordinated attacks. Each coordinated attack deals cryo damage based on SKIRK's attack, and when SKIRK takes damage while in 7-phase flash mode, 1 Avoc Silver stack will be consumed to decrease this damage instance and attack by opponents 3 times, with each attack dealing cryo damage based on SKIRK's attack as cryo damage, so pretty good constellation of course. It reduces her damage taken, which is really good for her, and she also deals a lot more damage with her burst and normal attack. Now for team comps, as we saw before, she can play in freeze teams, but without the presence of characters like Kazuha and Shilonen, since they are not cryo or hydro, and we know that it's really important for SKIRK to have the team fully composed of hydro and cryo characters to have her full buff from her passive talents. First option is their strongest one, in which we have SKIRK, Shenhe, Escoffier, and Furina. In this team we have the Cryo Resonance active, which will allow SKIRK to have 15% more crit rate, but beside this we have Shenhe buffing her normal attack and burst damage and buffing a bit opponents, Escoffier dealing damage, healing everyone and decreasing opponents' hydro and cryo resistance, and Furina buffing general performances and healing hydro damage. Shenhe can be replaced by Yelan, Mona, Mika, or Xingqiu, even Dahlia, but if you want to use a 4-star hydro character, Xingqiu is better. If you want to implement an Nadlan character for the scroll set effect, you can use Citlali with Kokomi in case you don't have Escoffier and you need a healer, and Furina of course. In this case, Citlali will grant elemental damage bonus to everyone and decrease opponents' hydro resistance. This will be my main team for her since I don't have Escoffier at the moment. As always, these were just examples. You can use SKIRK with 4-star characters like Rosaria, Charlotte, Layla, and others, with other cryo or hydro DPS as I said before, or with Kazuha, Shilonen, and electro characters, but keeping in mind that she wouldn't have the full buff stack. And that's all you needed to know about SKIRK. I hope this video came useful to you. Let me know in the comments your final thoughts about our Weapon Arts Master. I remind you to subscribe to the channel, to join my Discord server, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!